to answer your question about do I buy my first home or do I buy my first investment property? It's a common one that comes up, and I think it's very unique to everyone. I'll give you a few pros and cons.
Yeah.
So if I bought my first house, for example, with a view that I lived in it, but suddenly I want to travel or I want to take a job interstate, or I don't like that area anymore, now I'm stuck with it. So I bought it with the intention to live in it, but now I'm not going to live in it.
And then if you're not living in it, it's just eating on what you still have to pay for it.
Well, you put a renter in there, and they're going to pay your mortgage, right? But that property was never bought with the intention as an investment property. So it was bought with the intention for you to live in. You move into it, you generally spend, I don't know how much on like renovating the property to make it stylish. So it's sucking up all your money for not much of a return.
Yeah.
Whereas if you buy your first property as an investment property, you can still travel, because if you bought really well, the rent is going to cover the mortgage repayments and also the outgoings as well. So what we're hoping for is that property sits in the background, doesn't really cost you a lot to maintain it or to contribute towards it, but everything you're saving still can kind of pay off the mortgage as well.
But you're paying it off the home.
You're paying off the property.
Yeah, exactly.
And the income that's coming in from the people living in it is now helping to pay your mortgage off as well.
Yeah, exactly.
And you can rent where you want to, because typically your rent is going to be less than your mortgage repayment. So you can rent where you want to, buy where you can afford. It's what they call being a rent investor.
Yeah.
So rent where you want to live, buy where you can afford to. It's a perfect model until you get later in life where you go, now I know where I want to live. I want to put down roots.
I want to settle down. Yeah.
I think when we got married, we moved every year.
Yeah.
Right. We moved five different houses in 5 years because we just got itchy feet. We're like, why don't we move to Coogee? Why don't we move here? And we're like, renting gave us the flexibility to move to different areas and check it out, experience a different lifestyle, for example. Whereas if we bought our own home,
you're trapped.
You paid a lot of money to call somewhere home, which after a while you may not want to call home, or you outgrow, for
especially at a young age. Like you might not even want to live in Australia.
Mate, it almost goes back to our point about uni. Like, you don't know what you're studying, and that may take you on a different path. You bought a property, but it may not suit you in the next few years as well. But you spend a lot of money. It's hard to sell. It's hard to offload.
So it sounds like for younger listeners, you probably don't want to buy a home to live in for, until you are 100% sure where you want to live.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's fascinating.
I think it's a good strategy if you get committed to it. And if you think about it, if you're mid-20s, even by the time you make that decision, and you have a property that's going to hold for 10 years, right? By the time you're mid-30s, that property potentially could double, right? And now you're in a position where you could take that property now, leverage that property to buy your own home.